In the 19th and 20th centuries the base of the Russian Navy was in Vladivostok. From there ships sailed to the Far East and often Russian sailors survived the winter in the Japanese city of Nagasaki. From there came the tradition as musume or temporary wife. These women were in intimate relationships with Russian sailors and even became the mothers of their children. History of the emergence of the musume. Nagasaki in those days was given the second name Russian village because in the 1970s there were about 600 sailors from Russia who were shipwrecked on the cruiser Askold. It took about a year to repair the ship, during which time some men started families with local beauties. Such Japanese women began to be called musume, which meant girl. It might have been the name of a maid who served food to guests during dinner. In the Meiji era, however, the word was applied to girls who were married off to foreigners. With a very tolerant attitude to prostitution in Japan, the phenomenon was not condemned. Practically all Russian men who lived in Japan for 1 to 3 years had temporary wives who bore them children. For example, the son of the famous chemist Mendeleev had a musume. She gave birth to his daughter after he left for his homeland. What were the duties of the musume? Temporary wives paid for their services. They were contracted for a certain time, for a certain cost, $10 to $15 a month. This gave Japanese women an opportunity to get out of poverty, save up for a dowry, and marry a Japanese man normally. There was no official marriage ceremony between a Russian sailor and a Japanese girl, but the musume performed practically all the duties of a real wife. They were very faithful, zealously performed their marital duty and took care of their husband's comfort, but only as long as the contract was valid. If there were children in such a family, under the terms of the contract, the Japanese woman could not make any claims or demand any maintenance. What rights did the musume have? The rights of Japanese women depended directly on the duties of the spouse as stated in the contract. For example, sailors were obliged not only to pay each month the sum of $10 to $15, but also to provide lodging and food. For this purpose, the Russian men rented small local houses, and brought their own food or fed their musume in restaurants, since cooking was not the responsibility of Japanese women. Sometimes sailors even hired special servants to do the laundry and cleaning. There were also tacit rules. Musume demanded respect and fidelity. Even the usual flirting with other Japanese women was strictly censured and equated almost to treason. There were occasions when sailors took their temporary wives afterwards into formal ones and formed real families. Musume were not considered girls of easy virtue in Japan, but equal to married ladies, and they were treated with quite a lot of respect. Russian sailors, on the other hand, did not consider it a marriage and had Russian wives and brides in their homeland. Only innocent girls were taken to the musume, and sometimes they were sold by their parents to earn a dowry and to marry the girl off well to the local man in the future. The tradition of acquiring temporary wives lasted until 1904 to 1905. After the outbreak of the Russo-Japanese War, relations between the countries deteriorated and the musume title fell into oblivion.